everybody. Welcome back to Goodnight Lighthouse. I'm Miss Dorothy, and we're going to read you another story. And I'm going to read you a story about an exciting day that happens at school. It happens at my school, and I bet it happens at your school, and that's the 100th day. Woohoo! When we've been in school for 100 days, we have a big party to celebrate, and we learn how to count to 100, and this book is called Jake's 100th Day of School. Jake's 100th Day of School. This is what happens at Jake's school. All the projects the kids bring in and everything. Jake is so excited. But Jake's so excited that something happens that needs to be fixed. And we need to get into this book and find out what happens on Jake's 100th Day of School. Are you ready to get inside this book with Miss Dorothy? Good. I need you to sit up and listen up, because here we go.
Jake's 100th Day of School, written by Laminack, illustrated by Judy Love. Mr. Thompson's class was excited. Tomorrow would be the 100th day of school. Every day since school began, Mr. Thompson started class by adding one link to the Good Morning chain. Tomorrow they would add the 100th link, and all the students would bring in their collection of 100 things. Mr. Thompson said he had a superific surprise plan, too. A visit from Jake's Grandma Maggie. Everyone knew that meant something wonderful would happen.
Oh, how exciting. It's the 100th day of school.
When school was out that day, Jake and his friend chatted about their projects. I have 98 bottle caps, Henry said. Just 2 more to go. My dad and I can drink that much juice when I get home. Oh, I'm done, said Douglas. My mom helped me collect the last of my 100 signatures in her office last week. I have 87 paper clips, Emily chimed in. I need 13 more to make 100, and I got those from Mr. Booker in the library today. I'm working on a book of memories, Jake said. I collected 100 pictures of my family, and I've put most of them in my book already.
Wow, those are great ideas for the 100th day. Mr. Thompson was in the classroom very early on the 100th day. He wanted to have everything ready for the big event.
Yep, he said to himself, today is the big day.
Jake was so excited about the 100th day that he rushed out the door to catch the school bus. But he left something very important at home. Oh no! Did he forget his backpack? It has his project in it! He didn't even think about his book bag until the bus stopped for Emily. When he saw her wearing a chain of paper clips around her neck, Jake felt a flutter in his stomach. When he saw Henry boarding the bus with 100 bottle caps glued on a poster, Jake felt a lump in his throat. When Douglas showed up with his collection of 100 signatures, big tears welled up in Jake's eyes. Oh no, he just realized he doesn't have his project. By the time Jake arrived at school, he was surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of things. 100 buttons, 100 marbles, 100 rubber bands, and sailing around his head, 100 paper planes. Poor Jake. 100 cookies, 100 pencils, 100 beads and braids, and hanging from a wooden rod, 100 lucky cranes. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things.
Good morning, Jake, said Mrs. Wadsworth, the principal. Are you all set for the 100th day of school?
Jake stood like a statue and looked at her. He couldn't make a word come out of his mouth. He couldn't stop the tears spilling from his eyes.
Oh, did you forget?
Mrs. Wadsworth asked. Her voice was softer than a pillow. Jake could only nod his head. Mrs. Wadsworth put her arms around his shoulders.
Come in my office. We'll think of something.
The principal's going to try and help Jake. Jake climbed into the big chair, and Mrs. Wadsworth sat next to him.
Could we call someone at home to bring your collection? She asked.
Everyone's at work, Jake sniffled. Grandma Maggie's not home either. She's getting ready for the superific surprise.
Let's check around here, said Mrs. Wadsworth. I'll bet we can find 100 of something.
I don't know, Jake said. 100 is a whole lot of stuff. Poor Jake. He's so sad and so disappointed.
Do you suppose I have 100 paper clips in this jar? She asked,
lifting it for him to see. It doesn't look like 100, Jake said. Besides, Emily is wearing 100 paper clips. He looked around the office. Mrs. Wadsworth, all you've got in your office is books. Lots and lots of books. I guess we could make a collection of books. Well, that's a good idea.
Absolutely, Jake, Mrs. Wadsworth said with a smile. 100 books would make a wonderful collection for a super reader like you. Let's see if I have that many.
Jake and Mrs. Wadsworth took books from her shelves. They counted 10 books and made a stack, 10 more and 10 more until they had 10 stacks. Jake touched each stack as he carefully counted them. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Wow, Mrs. Wadsworth, that's 100 books. Yay, Jake is so excited. He has 100 things. Together, they rolled the cart of books down the hallway to room 24. Jake added his collection to all the others. Then he made a sign. 100 books from Mrs. Wadsworth's office. When all the projects were on display, Mr. Thompson told the class that it was time to begin the 100th day of school.
Mrs. Wadsworth, he said, before you go back to your office, would you add the 100th link to the Good Morning chain?
The morning was filled with even more hundreds. The 100th check was marked on the I Fed Goldilocks chart. The 100th knot was tied on the days of reading rope, and some kids turned sharing their collection into 100 things. Then, around 10 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. When Mr. Thompson opened it, Jake's Grandma Maggie came in with someone the kids had never seen. The surprise visitor walked in with a wooden stick, stepping very slowly into the room.
Good morning, boys and girls, Grandma Maggie said. This is my Aunt Lulu. Can anyone guess why I brought my Aunt Lulu for the 100th day of school? Maybe it's because of that stick, Henry said. I'll bet there's 100 ribbons on it.
Aunt Lulu eased into Mr. Thompson's chairs and chuckled.
Well, you're a very clever boy, she said. I did tie 100 ribbons on my walking stick. But that's not the only reason, said Grandma Maggie. My Aunt Lulu is 100 years old. Wow, was all the children could say, and the sound of it swooshed across the room like the wind on the playground.
She's 100 years old? Wow!
Aunt Lulu and I are going to help you make a special snack, Grandma Maggie said, unrolling a chart with their recipe written on it.
After all the kids finished their 100th day snack, they sat together to hear about more projects. What an exciting day! Jake was the last to share his 100th day project.
I made a picture book of 100 memories, except I forgot it this morning, he said. But that's okay, because Mrs. Wadsworth helped me make a collection of books from her office. She must have 1,000 of them in there. I put them in 10 stacks of 10, and if you count by 10, that's 100 books. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100.
Jake, that's an excellent collection, said Mr. Thompson. I know you also worked very hard on your 100 memories. Would you like it, bring it tomorrow? We'd love to see it.
It wouldn't be the same, Mr. Thompson. Tomorrow will be 101 days of school.
You're right about that, Jake's teacher said, nodding. He agreed. Jake sat thinking for a moment. He looked at Grandma Maggie with a twinkle in his eyes, and then he whispered something to Mr. Thompson. Good idea, Jake, said his teacher.
Grandma Maggie, would you please stand with Aunt Lulu near the book cart?
Jake said as he headed out the door. I'll be right back. When Jake returned to the classroom with Mrs. Wadsworth, Aunt Lula said, All right now, let's show him some teeth. And Mr. Thompson snapped their picture. The next day, Jake brought his picture of 100 memories to share with his class. But it wasn't the 100th day anymore. Now it was the 101st day. And that meant one more page. And a picture everyone remembered. The 100th day of school. Me and Aunt Lulu, Grandma Maggie, Mrs. Wadsworth, and 100 books.
Wow, that was an exciting 100th day of school. They had so many things to count. Everybody brought in 100 things. Jake was so excited about his project that he made with his grandma that he ran out of the house without it. He forgot it. And he got to school and he didn't have a project like everybody else. But his teacher came up with a really good idea of 100 things they could count right there at school. And then Grandma showed up and brought his project, and they had 100 pictures and one great picture to remember this fun day by. The 100th day of school is so much fun. I can't wait for my 100th day of school. Do you have one coming up soon? What will you take? You know, there's so many things you could take. You could take 100 buttons, or you could take 100 pennies, or you could take 100 raisins, or 100 goldfish. There's so many things you could take. Talk to Mom and Dad. Find out what you can do for your 100th day of school project and have a great, great time with it. And why don't you send Miss Dorothy a picture? I'd love to see what you did for your 100th day of school. You know what? You can write to me and ask for a book. You can also write to me and send me a picture, or just tell me all about your 100th day. I'd love to hear about it and talk to you about it right here. So why don't you do that on your 100th day of school? And remember, you're going to need Mom and Dad's help, so you ask politely and be kind about what you can pick for your 100th day item. And whatever they say, obey, and obey right away. And then come back and see Miss Dorothy, because I'm going to be sitting right here, ready to read another book to you. Bye!
Thanks for reading with Miss Dorothy. I hope you enjoyed this book, and I hope you'll come back soon to read another. What's your favorite book? Drop Miss Dorothy a note and let me know. I'll go find it and I'll read it to you. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share. I'll see you soon.